Welcome to the Happiness Podcast. I'm Dr. Robert Puff. I don't know if you've ever been touched by poison ivy, but it is not fun. It's incredibly itchy, your skin breaks out into a rash, and it doesn't go away for quite a while. Like I said, it is something you do not want to tangle with. And you want to know something interesting about poison ivy? Is that the more you get exposed to it, the more sensitive you become to it. In other words, if you touch it over and over and over again because you do a lot of hiking, after time, you'll develop a pretty severe reaction to it. So your best bet is to just stay away from poison ivy. Now, I don't know if you could do this, but if you were able to go to your local gardening store and find poison ivy seeds, you could plant them and grow them. And with time, you'd have a poison ivy plant. But could you imagine going to that store, planting those poison ivy seeds, and expect after a little bit of time that healthy, super nutritious blueberries would blossom from the poison ivy seeds? I don't think so. Now you may be thinking, Dr. Puff, what are you talking about? Have you gone crazy? Not yet, thankfully, but I do wonder when I watch people if they sometimes go a little crazy. You may say, what do you mean? Well, the title of this talk is Karmic Consequences, How Our Thoughts and Actions Reap Results. And first off, I'm not referring to anything about the afterlife. I'm talking about in this life. Our thoughts and our actions reap consequences, karma, or cause and effect. So, if we plant poison ivy seeds, we're going to get poison ivy. We are not going to get blueberries. Of course, and this seems utterly obvious, but when we, throughout the day, make choices, have thoughts, do actions, they have consequences. Everything we do matters, some in little degrees, but some in really big degrees. And normally, almost always, it's incredibly obvious that this choice we're making right now is going to have a positive or a negative outcome. The question is, do we really acknowledge that? And that's why I wonder if some people really do struggle with, are they thinking clearly? Are they thinking sanely? Because I think they're making choices that are, wow, that is not going to end well. Let me use a couple of very clear and blatant examples just to illustrate my point. I believe everyone knows that drinking too much and driving is a really, really bad idea. I think we just all know that, because we all know people that have gotten accidents, got DUIs, or even killed someone or killed themselves by drinking and driving. And yet, every day across the world, people get in the car drunk and drive. Every single day. Thousands, probably millions of people do that every single day. And the consequences, the karmic consequences, are astronomical if something goes poorly. Or what about this one? I believe that pretty much everyone on the planet knows that moving the body, getting some form of exercise on a regular basis, and eating fresh fruits and vegetables is really good for us. Eat a lot of them and exercise and move that body often. And yet how many people after a day at work don't do that? Or if they're retired, stop doing that, or have never done that, and instead they eat what they want, they don't exercise, and then they have health problems, sometimes very severe, karmic consequences. Now, I'm not using these 2 points to criticize people. I'm just showing that we do a lot of things that we know aren't good for us, and yet we do them. So why is it important what we do? Why does it matter? Because of karmic consequences. Our thoughts and actions reap results, all of them. And that's the point I want to make today. Not to judge ourselves, not to criticize ourselves, but just to realize that everything we do throughout the day, whatever we watch on our phones, conversations we have, thoughts we have in our heads, actions that we participate in, they all have consequences. They all reap results. And a poison ivy seed is not going to grow blueberries. It's going to grow poison ivy. So what we have to ask ourselves throughout the day is, my thoughts, my actions that I'm participating in throughout the day, are they going to grow blueberries or are they going to grow poison ivy? A person I know recently retired. I asked him, well, what are you doing with your free time? And he says, well, I get on YouTube and I watch a lot of car accidents from Russia. Now I'm very sure from his point of view, he's doing something very harmless. And I'm not trying to criticize him. I'm just saying everything we do has consequences. Everything. So what would watching accident after accident after accident do to us? What about just our thoughts? Imagine throughout the day when we're out and about and we see people, we find something about them we don't like. We think they're too fat, they're too short, they're too hairy, whatever it may be. They talk too much, they talk too fast, they talk too softly. And I was surprised when I was younger how incongruent this could be, because I had a friend of mine who got married many, many years ago, and his wife was heavy. She was heavier than the average person. And he told me, because he was normal weight, that she was so critical of other people being heavy, and he was surprised by that because she was heavy. And I think because she was planting poison ivy seeds in regards to criticizing others, it made it more difficult for her to lose weight and get healthy. Because the one thing about criticizing other people, we are much harder on ourselves. So it's best not to go down that path. It's best to see people and to find something beautiful about them, something that we like. Because the question we need to ask ourselves throughout the day, from our thoughts to our actions, is what am I planting and what's going to grow from this thought or this action? If we come home after a long day and we had asked our kids to clean their room, we get there and their rooms aren't clean, and then we find them and we scream at them and call them names, say they're lazy and blank, blank, blank. What's going to grow from that? It's not going to be good for our hearts. Nothing good's going to grow from that in our hearts. It's probably not going to be very good for our kids' hearts. So when we think about that, when we think about the consequences of everything that we do, we begin to reflect. And we can ask ourselves, okay, right now, what I'm doing, is this going to grow blueberries or is this going to grow poison ivy? But unfortunately, I think what we do is we don't think it's going to grow anything. We think it's irrelevant. So let me ask you this. If you ever meet someone who you say, wow, they're really healthy, their lives are going exceptionally well, you're probably going to find that they stay away from things and thoughts and actions that are unhealthy and even develop a sensitivity to them. This is because when we become happier and healthier, we are far more aware of our thoughts and actions reaping consequences. A simple example of this is, I was on vacation once and I saw a mother just screaming at her child, so loud that everyone could hear. My heart could just feel the pain of both her and her child. It was very upsetting. I think we would all agree that this has very negative karmic consequences for everyone involved. But what we forget is everything does. When we watch it on television or a YouTube channel, something that's dysfunctional, hurtful, painful, it affects us. When we just think thoughts of hate and anger, or we hang on to resentment, what is that doing to us? What consequences are we reaping from these thoughts, from these actions that we participate in all day long? Is it really harmless to come home and watch hours and hours of mindless television about people making fun of each other, about violence, about crime? Is it truly just neutral? Or perhaps everything we do has a karmic consequence? For example, I'm actually quite sensitive to negativity on shows. It really bothers me. I have to turn it off. I can't follow the series anymore. And mostly, I just watch documentaries. Not all, but mostly I watch them because they don't have negative images on them. I thought, well, is there something wrong with me? I used to be able to watch them. I just can't anymore. So I talked to people that I knew lives were going exceptionally well. And you know what? They were just like me. All of them. So I do think everything has a karmic consequence. The question we have to ask ourselves is, what is it? What is this thing that I'm doing right now? This thought, this action, is it going to be planting poison ivy? Or is it going to be planting blueberries? It's far better, I know this may sound silly, but it's far better to plant lots and lots of blueberries. What I do think happens though with lots of people, which is very sad, is that they are planting so many poison ivy plants throughout the day with their thoughts and their actions that that's all they ever see is poison ivy everywhere, and they just think everyone's life sucks life is hard, and then someday you die and it's over. But I believe we can have much better lives than that, obviously. We can have gorgeous lives, but we have to acknowledge that every single thought, every single action has a consequence to it. I know some of them may be neutral, like brushing our teeth, but even when we're brushing our teeth, we probably have some thoughts going through our head. What are they? Are we thinking about the day ahead and how we're exhausted already and we wish we could retire? Are we excited for the new day and all the prospects that may come? When we drive to work, again, seems neutral, but what are we listening to? Or if we get on the phone and talk to a buddy of ours, what's a conversation like? How does it go? There are choices that we make throughout the day, all day long, thoughts that we have throughout the day, all day long. We need to begin to observe them and then just keep asking this question. Is this thought, is this action planning something beautiful or is it planning something ugly? Let's say, for example, we're just getting together with a friend and having a meal. It seems neutral, doesn't it? But we're connecting with someone at the heart level. We're spending time with them. We're letting them know that they're important to us. Let's say we go to the store and get our groceries. We're going to run into perhaps 10, 20 people. Maybe not talk to them, but you know what? We can give them a smile. We can look at them. We can perhaps have a brief conversation with them when we're checking out. There's so many ways we can, throughout the day, make sure we're planting blueberries. You may think I'm a little goofy, but one thing I do when I'm traveling and out and about, I love to look to people in their face and just give them a smile. A lot of times they don't even notice, but I do, and sometimes I get a really nice smile back. We are, throughout the day, making choices, both through our actions and our thoughts. And every thought, every action we make has a consequence. Yes, sometimes there are really big consequences, and sometimes they're very small. But every single one of them has a karmic consequence. And when we see that, then we can ask ourselves, okay, I've got a 15-minute break here, and I'm on my phone looking at videos that perhaps aren't doing anything good and maybe doing things that are harmful. Could I use that time differently? Could I listen to a podcast? Could I listen to some beautiful music? Could I engage with people around me instead of putting my head into my phone? There are so many things we can do that create positive karma, and there's a lot of choices we can do that create negative karma. But some form of karma is being created. So we ask ourselves, what is it? What if we did this instead? I'm going to plant blueberries, or whatever you prefer, all day long, throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, throughout the rest of my life, however long I have left. What would that look like? Oh my goodness, it could be spectacular. So in conclusion, may we perhaps, just perhaps, really look at throughout the day, what are we planning? Realizing everything, every thought, every action that we participate in matters, and that we decide that we want to have a gorgeous life with the most beautiful blueberries all around us. And that's the life we're going to choose going forward. It is possible, it does take work, but the karmic consequences of choosing this path are spectacular. Thank you for joining me on the Happiness Podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast, please go to happinesspodcast.org. And until next time, accept what is, love what is.